Hello, my friends. Welcome to WooEnglish, where we learn English through real stories that shaped our world. Today, we travel back in time to a young nation full of hope and fear, a land that had just broken free from a king and now needed to rule itself. This is the story of the United States Constitution, the document that built a nation, balanced power, and protected freedom. It began with 13 small states on the edge of the Atlantic. Each one wanted independence. Each one wanted a voice. But without unity, their freedom could easily fall apart. So in the summer of 1787, 55 men met in secret in Philadelphia. They argued, they debated, they dreamed. And from that heat and conflict, a new plan was born. A plan that would change not only America, but the idea of democracy itself. Through this story, you will learn how the Constitution was written, how it divided power to protect liberty, and how it still shapes the modern world today. You will hear about the Great Compromise, the birth of the Bill of Rights, and the rise of the Supreme Court. Each chapter revealing how this single document became the heart of American democracy. It is more than history. It is a lesson in balance, justice, and courage. A reminder that freedom is not given. It is built, protected, and renewed. So sit back, listen closely, and let the story begin. The year is 1776. Chapter 1. The Birth of a Nation. The year is 1776. Drums beat, cannons roar. A new voice rises in the air. Freedom. 13 British colonies on the edge of North America have had enough. They are tired of paying taxes to a distant king. They want to make their own laws, build their own future. Men gather in Philadelphia. They speak with passion and fear. Thomas Jefferson writes a document, the Declaration of Independence. It says something the world has never heard so clearly before. All men are created equal. That summer, a new nation is born, the United States of America. But what does united really mean? Each colony becomes a state. Each one has its own government, its own money, its own ideas. Together, they fight Britain and win. But after the war, something feels wrong. The soldiers return home, unpaid. Farms are destroyed. Merchants lose trade. States argue over borders and taxes. There is no strong national leader, no plan, no unity. The new country is free, but fragile. In 1781, they try something, the Articles of Confederation. It is their first national government, but it gives too little power to the center. Congress cannot collect taxes. It cannot control trade between states. It cannot even pay the army. The dream of freedom begins to fall apart. George Washington, once the great general, looks around and worries. He sees protests in Massachusetts, poor farmers angry about debts. He sees confusion in the capital. He fears the young nation might collapse. He writes, "Something must be done, or we will become 13 separate countries." So the leaders decide to meet again. They choose Philadelphia, the same city where independence was declared. It is now 1787. The air is thick with heat and history. 55 men arrive. Most are well educated. Many are young. Some, like Benjamin Franklin, are old and wise. They come with one goal: to fix the government. But soon, they realize something bigger must be done. Not just a fix, a full redesign. They want to write a new plan. A plan strong enough to hold 13 states together. A plan fair enough to protect liberty forever. Inside the old Pennsylvania State House, now called Independence Hall, the doors are closed. No one outside is allowed to know what they discuss. The windows are shut to keep out reporters and curiosity. It becomes known as the Constitutional Convention. George Washington is chosen to lead the meeting. He says little, but his presence keeps order. James Madison, small in body but great in mind, takes notes on every speech. He will later be called the Father of the Constitution. The debates are long and loud. Some want a strong national government. Others fear another king in disguise. Some want the people to vote directly. Others say only landowners should decide. They argue for days, weeks, months. But slowly an idea forms: a new system of balance. The United States will have 3 parts of government: one to make the laws, one to enforce the laws, and one to interpret the laws. No one person will hold all power. Every part will watch the other. It will be a system built on trust and caution. But they still face hard questions. How will states vote? Who will lead the nation? What about human rights? Those answers will come later. For now, something powerful is happening inside that hot secret room. A nation is being rebuilt on paper, not by war, but by words. Outside, the people wait. Days turn into months. Then, on September 17th, 1787, the delegates finally finish. They sign their names on the new document, the Constitution of the United States. Benjamin Franklin looks at the carving on the wall, a sun rising above a chair. He smiles and says softly, "I have often wondered, is it a rising sun or a setting sun? Today I know it is a rising sun." The hall fills with applause. The long struggle for freedom now has a map. The nation now has a guide. But not everyone is happy. Some states refuse to accept the new plan. They fear it gives too much power to government. They ask, where are the people's rights? The fight is not over. The Constitution will need defenders and changes. The next chapter will tell how this fragile paper became the law of a great nation. Chapter 2: The Weak Articles of Confederation. The war for independence is over. The British Army has gone home. The American flag waves proudly in the wind. But victory brings new problems. How do you build a country from nothing? How do 13 states become one nation? Each state wants freedom. Each one wants control of its own money, its own laws, its own borders. No one trusts a strong central government, not after living under a king. So the leaders create a weak system. In 1781, they agree on a new plan. the Articles of Confederation. It becomes the first national government of the United States. They call their union a firm league of friendship. It sounds hopeful, but friendship alone cannot hold a nation together. Under the Articles, there is no president, no court system, only one Congress, one meeting place for representatives from each state. Every state has one vote, no matter how big or small. Important decisions need the agreement of 9 states out of 13. To change the Articles, all 13 must say yes. Sound simple? It wasn't. Congress could make laws, but no one had to follow them. Congress could ask states for money, but couldn't make them pay. Congress could raise an army, but couldn't pay the soldiers. It was government without power, a body without a heart. Soon, problems begin. Different states print their own money. Prices rise fast. Trade between states breaks down. Merchants lose trust. Farmers can't sell their crops. Debts grow heavy. And there is danger too. Without money for soldiers, the army disappears. Foreign nations, Britain, France, Spain, start to doubt America's strength. They watch, waiting for the young country to fall apart. Even allies grow restless. France wants its war loans paid back. But the government cannot collect taxes. It can only beg the states for help. Some states send money. Others send nothing. The nation begins to sink into chaos. Then, in 1786, the people's anger explodes. In Massachusetts, hundreds of farmers protest their debts. They march under the banner of a former soldier, Daniel Shays. He fought bravely in the Revolution, but now his farm is lost, his money worthless, his family hungry. Shays and his men demand change. They want debt relief and lower taxes. When the courts refuse, they take up weapons and march on the government. It becomes known as Shays' Rebellion. The rebellion shocks the nation. If this can happen in Massachusetts, what will happen next? Without a strong government, who can stop it? George Washington writes letters from his home in Mount Vernon. He warns that the new republic is in danger. He says, "We are fast verging to anarchy and confusion." His words spread across the states like a storm. Leaders realize something must change. Now. The Articles of Confederation had given too much freedom and too little unity. The states were like 13 boats floating in the same sea, each rowing in a different direction. They needed a captain, a compass, a plan. James Madison and Alexander Hamilton call for a new meeting, a convention to fix the system. At first, many leaders hesitate. Some fear another king might rise. Others say, "Why change what we just built?" But when violence spreads, when trade fails, when the people lose hope, the answer becomes clear. The Articles are not strong enough to protect liberty. They are chains of paper. In 1787, the delegates agree to meet in Philadelphia again. They will not just repair the Articles, they will start fresh. They will write a new document that gives both freedom and strength. It is a bold decision. Some call it dangerous. But for men like Madison, Hamilton, and Washington, there is no other choice. America must be united, or it will be lost. In May 1787, the doors of Independence Hall close once more. Outside, the people wait anxiously. Inside, 55 men begin the most important debate in the nation's history. The weak Articles of Confederation will soon die, and from their ashes, something greater will be born. The Constitution of the United States. This moment will decide the future of democracy, he says. Can power and freedom live together? Can a government be strong and still be fair? The answers lie ahead. Inside those hot, closed rooms of Philadelphia. Chapter 3. The Philadelphia Convention. It is May 1787. Spring sunlight warms the streets of Philadelphia. Carriages arrive one by one before the old State House. 55 men step inside. Their coats are dark. Their faces serious. They have come to save their young nation. The United States is in crisis. Money is weak. States fight like rivals. The old government, the Articles of Confederation, has failed. Now these men will try to build something new, a stronger union, a lasting system, a constitution. The meeting begins behind closed doors. The windows are shut tight. No reporters, no public. Inside, the air grows hot and heavy. George Washington sits at the front, tall, silent, calm. His presence brings order. He was the hero of the Revolution. Now he will lead this convention. James Madison sits nearby with a notebook. He writes every word, every argument. Later, his notes will become the history of this moment. He is young, quiet, and deeply focused. People call him the father of the Constitution. Benjamin Franklin arrives in a simple gray suit. He is 81 years old, carried by helpers through the door. He smiles kindly, but listens sharply. His wisdom fills the room like light. From every state, delegates bring their own ideas. Virginia brings power. New Jersey brings caution. The debate begins. The Virginia Plan, written by James Madison, proposes a strong national government. It would have 3 branches, one to make the laws, one to carry them out, and one to judge them. This is new. This is bold. It gives power to the center, something many still fear. Soon, the smaller states object. They say, if big states like Virginia get more votes, they will control us. Voices rise. Fists hit the table. The dream of unity begins to shake. William Patterson of New Jersey stands. He presents the New Jersey Plan. In his plan, every state has equal power. 1 vote each, just like before. The room divides. Big states want population-based votes. Small states demand equality. The tension is sharp, like a knife in the air. For weeks they argue. Some threaten to leave. Some whisper that the convention will fail. But Benjamin Franklin, tired of the shouting, speaks softly one morning. He says, when a body is divided, we must find the middle point. Compromise is not weakness. It is wisdom. The room falls silent. His words stay in every mind. And slowly, a new plan begins to form. This plan will balance both sides. It will have two parts, a Congress with two houses. One house, called the Senate, gives each state equal power, 2 senators each. The other, called the House of Representatives, gives power based on population. This becomes known as the Great Compromise. It saves the convention. It saves the dream. But other issues rise quickly. How should slaves be counted in population? Should the government control trade between states? How long should a president serve? These are difficult questions, moral, political, and personal. Men argue for hours, days, months. The summer heat grows unbearable. Sweat runs down their faces, yet they continue. They are building a nation with words. Outside, the people wait. Rumors spread. Are they creating a king? Will we lose our freedom? No one knows. The doors remain locked. Inside, the delegates write, erase, and write again. By September, the work is finally done. They have created a new constitution, a document unlike any in the world. It begins with 7 powerful words. We, the people of the United States. These words mean something radical. The government's power comes not from kings or armies, but from the people themselves. On September 17, 1787, the delegates gather one last time. The Constitution is ready to be signed. Benjamin Franklin looks at the carving of a sun behind the chair of Washington. He says softly, "I have often wondered whether that sun was rising or setting. Now I know it is a rising sun." A gentle cheer fills the room. They have done it. They have built a new foundation for freedom. But outside those doors, the real challenge begins. Will the people accept this new constitution? Will the states agree to join under one law? Some love it, some fear it, and soon a fierce public battle will begin. Chapter 4. The Great Compromise. The heat of summer, 1787, still hangs over Philadelphia. Inside the hall, voices rise again. The debate is not over. It is only growing louder. Big states and small states are at war. With words. It is a quiet war, but no less dangerous. Because if they cannot agree, the new nation may fall before it begins. The question is simple and impossible. How should states be represented in Congress? How should power be shared? The Virginia Plan, supported by big states like Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts, says this: the more people a state has, the more votes it should get. It sounds fair. Population decides power. But the small states cry out in anger. They fear they will be swallowed by the large ones. They say, if we give in, the big states will rule forever. Our voices will disappear. So the smaller states fight back with the New Jersey Plan. It gives each state exactly 1 vote, equal power for all. Now the room is divided in 2. No side will move. No side will bend. The air grows heavy with frustration. George Washington sits silently at the front. He watches, but does not speak. Even his calm presence cannot stop the tension. James Madison whispers to his notes, writing everything. Alexander Hamilton paces the floor, full of energy and pride. He dreams of a strong central government, but others fear his ideas go too far. The arguments last for weeks. Some men threaten to leave the convention. One delegate from Delaware says, "If we are not equal, we will not sign." Benjamin Franklin finally rises. His voice is soft, old, but full of wisdom. He says, "When different interests divide us, let us search for the middle. Compromise, gentlemen, is the spirit of peace." The room falls quiet. Everyone listens. Everyone knows he is right. So a new idea begins to grow. A bridge between the two plans. It comes from Roger Sherman, a calm delegate from Connecticut. He proposes a mix, a great compromise. He says, "Let us create two houses in Congress. One house will represent the people by population. This will be called the House of Representatives. The other will represent the states equally. This will be the Senate. Big states will have more seats in the House. Small states will have equal power in the Senate. Each state, big or small, will send 2 senators. It is simple, it is fair, and it just might save the Union." The men argue again, but this time with new hope. Some still resist. Others finally nod. Votes are taken. The result is close, but the great compromise wins. Applause echoes through the room. Relief fills the air. After weeks of division, there is unity again. For the first time, the delegates see a clear shape for their new government. 2 houses, one for the people, one for the states. The system is balanced, not perfect, but practical. Still, other questions remain. How will laws pass? How long should senators serve? How can power be checked? They decide that both houses must agree before a law becomes real. They decide senators will serve 6 years, longer than representatives, to bring stability. And slowly, the framework of the U.S. government takes form. The Congress we still know today. Outside, the city buzzes with rumors. Some fear that the delegates are creating a secret empire. Others hope this new plan will finally bring peace and unity. In taverns, newspapers, and homes, people talk of representation, balance, and freedom. Ordinary Americans begin to understand that this compromise, this agreement, will shape their lives. Because without balance, democracy cannot stand. Without respect between large and small, the nation cannot survive. As the meeting ends that night, Benjamin Franklin looks out the window. The sky is dark, but a few stars shine above the city. He smiles faintly. He knows this compromise is not the end of the struggle. It is the beginning of understanding. The great compromise, he says, was more than a deal between states. It was a promise that in America, no voice is too small and no power too great. Chapter 5. Checks and Balances. The summer of 1787 moves on. The Great Compromise has saved the convention for now. But another great question remains. How can power be used without being abused? The Founding Fathers know history well. They know what happens when one person holds too much control. They have seen kings, tyrants, and dictators. They have seen how freedom dies in silence. One law, one order, one crown at a time. They want something different. They want power to serve the people, not rule them. So they begin to build a new system, one that divides power carefully, like slices of a circle. Each piece strong, but never stronger than the rest. They call it checks and balances. James Madison speaks first. He says, "If men were angels, no government would be necessary. But men are not angels. Power must be made to check power." The room nods in agreement. They know this truth too well. So, they design 3 branches of government. The legislative branch, Congress. It makes the laws. It has 2 houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. One represents equality, the other population. Together, they write and vote on laws for the whole nation. The executive branch, the president. It enforces the laws. It leads the army. It represents the nation to the world. But the president cannot make laws alone. He must work with Congress, the judicial branch, the courts. It interprets the laws. It makes sure every law follows the Constitution. At the top stands the Supreme Court, the final voice of justice. Each branch has its own power and its own limits. Congress can pass a law, but the president can veto it, say no. However, Congress can override that veto if enough members agree. The president can choose judges, but the Senate must approve them. The courts can strike down laws that break the Constitution. But judges are chosen by leaders the people elect. No one rules alone. No one stands above the law. This balance is delicate, like 3 ropes holding one ship steady in a storm. Still, not everyone trusts this design. Some say the president will become another king. Others say Congress will take too much control. And some fear the courts, unelected, quiet, yet powerful. The debates go deep into the night. Some men want to make the president weak. Others argue he must be strong to protect the nation. George Washington says little, but his calm presence helps them find peace. Everyone knows he will likely be the first president, and they trust his character more than any rule. At last, they decide, the president will serve 4 years. He can be re-elected, but not forever. He will take an oath to defend the Constitution, not himself. This becomes the model of leadership. Limited power, guided by duty. Benjamin Franklin listens quietly as they discuss the courts. When asked what should guide judges, he smiles and says, "Wisdom and honesty, for without them, no rule can save us." The men laugh softly, but they know he is right. No system, no document, no rule will last without virtue. Freedom lives in both the law and the heart. Outside, the people still wonder what is happening behind those locked doors. Rumors fly through Philadelphia. Some say the delegates are fighting. Others say they are inventing something the world has never seen. And they are. For the first time, a nation is designing a government that limits itself. A system where power must listen, must wait, must share. This is the genius of the Constitution, he says. Not the search for perfect leaders, but the creation of a system that survives imperfect ones. By September, the delegates can feel it. They are close. They have built the skeleton of a government, but something is still missing. Something that will protect the people themselves. They have given structure to power. Now they must give rights to the people. Because a government balanced in power is not enough. It must also respect the voice of every citizen. Chapter 6. The Bill of Rights. The Constitution is finished. The delegates are tired, proud, and hopeful. They believe they have built a strong and fair government. But outside the hall, a storm is waiting. People begin to read the new document, and fear spreads quickly. Farmers, merchants, and workers ask, "Where are our rights?" They see power in the president, in Congress, in the courts, but they do not see protection for themselves. There is no promise of free speech, no guarantee of freedom of religion, no clear words about a fair trial or personal liberty. To many Americans, the new Constitution looks strong, too strong. They remember kings. They remember soldiers in their homes. They remember fear. Now they want assurance, not just laws, but limits. Two groups are born. The Federalists support the Constitution. They say, "It is good as it is. It protects freedom through structure." The Anti-Federalists disagree. They say, without clear rights, this new government could become a monster. The debate fills newspapers, taverns, and homes. In towns and cities, people argue late into the night. The dream of unity is at risk again. James Madison watches the conflict with worry. He helped design the Constitution. He believes in it deeply, but he listens to the people. He understands their fear. He writes, "A Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to, against every government on earth." Slowly, he begins to change his mind. He realizes the Constitution needs more, not in power, but in promise. So Madison sits down to write again. He takes ideas from state declarations, from philosophers, from the Revolution itself. He collects what Americans have fought for, what they have died for, what they now demand to protect forever. He writes 12 proposals, short, clear, powerful. 10 of them will later be accepted. Together, they become known as the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment, freedom of religion, speech, and the press. No one can be punished for their opinions or beliefs. A bold idea in a world still ruled by kings and censorship. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Citizens may protect themselves and their liberty. The Third Amendment, no soldiers can live in your home without consent. A direct memory of British occupation. The Fourth Amendment, protection from unreasonable searches. Your home, your papers, your privacy, all are yours. The Fifth and Sixth Amendments, the rights of the accused. You cannot be jailed without reason. You have the right to a fair trial, to a lawyer, to silence. The Eighth Amendment, no cruel or unusual punishments. Justice must be fair, not cruel. The Ninth and 10th Amendments, freedom beyond the page. The people and the states keep all powers not given to the federal government. When these 10 amendments are added in 1791, the people finally feel safe. They see their freedom written clearly, not promised by rulers, but protected by law. In homes and schools, Americans read the Bill of Rights like a prayer. In courtrooms, it becomes a shield. In hearts, it becomes a symbol of trust. George Washington, now the first President of the United States, signs the amendments proudly. He says, "The foundation of our national policy will be laid in the pure and immutable principles of private morality." To him, the Bill of Rights is more than words. It is the moral soul of the new republic. But not everyone believes it will last. Some fear that time will twist its meaning. Others wonder if these rights can survive future wars and crises. Yet, year after year, the Bill of Rights endures. It travels through history, into schools, protests, speeches, and songs. It becomes part of American identity, a promise that freedom belongs to everyone. These words, he says, are simple. But behind them are battles, tears, and courage. The Bill of Rights is not just paper. It is the voice of the people whispering, "We are free." The Constitution now breathes with life. Power is balanced. Rights are protected. But the story of change does not end here. Because as America grows, new challenges will come. And the Constitution must grow with them. Chapter 7. The Amendments and Change. The year is 1791. The Bill of Rights is now part of the Constitution. America finally breathes easier. People feel their freedoms are safe. But time never stands still. The nation will grow, and with it, new questions will rise. The founders were wise enough to know this. They wrote a rule inside the Constitution, a way to change it. It is called the amendment process. Through it, the people can add, remove, or improve the nation's laws. The Constitution is not a stone. It is alive. It can change when the people change. The process is not simple. An amendment must first be approved by 2/3 of Congress. Then, it must be accepted by 3/4 of the states. Only when the people truly agree does it become part of the law. This makes change slow, careful, and serious. In more than 2 centuries, only 27 amendments have been added. Each one tells a story about America, its mistakes, its hopes, its courage. The first great test comes in the 1800s. The young nation faces its darkest chapter, slavery. Millions of African Americans are held as property. Families are separated. Freedom exists only for some. The contradiction is clear. How can a country built on liberty live with such injustice? A terrible war begins, the Civil War between the North and the South. It ends in 1865 with victory for the Union and freedom for the enslaved. Soon after, 3 powerful amendments change the nation forever. The 13th Amendment ends slavery completely. No one can own another person. The 14th Amendment gives citizenship to all people born in the United States. It guarantees equal protection under the law. The 15th Amendment gives African American men the right to vote. These three together are called the Reconstruction Amendments. They rebuild not just the country, but its moral heart. Years pass. The world changes again. Women begin to demand their voice in government. They march, write, and speak for their rights. In 1920, after decades of struggle, they win. The 19th Amendment gives women the right to vote. It is a moment of justice long delayed. America moves one step closer to equality. Later come other changes. The 17th Amendment allows people to elect their senators directly. The 22nd limits the president to 2 terms to prevent endless power. The 26th lowers the voting age to 18, giving youth a voice in democracy. Each amendment reflects a lesson learned. Each one shows how the Constitution grows with the people. But not all changes come easily. Some take years of protest. Some begin in courts or on the streets, and some never pass at all. Many Americans try to add new amendments about equality, taxes, education, or even balanced budgets. Some fail because the people cannot agree. Others wait for the right moment in history. That is the beauty and the burden of democracy. Change is possible, but never automatic. When people read the Constitution today, they see a timeline of growth. From the Bill of Rights to the latest amendment, it tells how Americans have fought for justice again and again. The Constitution has survived wars, depressions, and crises. It has faced challenges that the founders could never have imagined. Technology, space travel, global trade, and civil rights. Yet it still stands, still guides, still adapts. Many nations around the world have written their own constitutions inspired by it. They admire its balance, its language, its promise that people can rule themselves. But the American story reminds us, the document alone is not enough. Its power depends on the people who live by it, who defend it, question it, and improve it. Freedom must be practiced, not just written. Rights must be renewed by every generation. The Constitution began as 7 articles and 10 amendments. Now, it is 27 strong, a living record of America's long road toward equality and justice. It grows with time, just as the nation grows. And as long as it can change, it can live. Chapter 8. The Supreme Court and the Law of the Land. When the founders built the Constitution, they created 3 branches of government. One to make the laws, one to enforce them, and one to judge them. That third branch, the judicial branch, would become one of the most powerful in American history. At its top stands the Supreme Court of the United States. It has only 9 justices, 9 people who hold the power to decide what the Constitution truly means. The Supreme Court began its work in 1789, soon after the Constitution was ratified. At first, it was quiet, almost invisible. The justices met in small rooms, traveling on horseback to hear cases. But in time, the court would become the final voice in American law, the guardian of the Constitution. Its duty is simple but enormous: to say whether the government's actions follow the Constitution or break it. If a law or action goes against the Constitution, the court can strike it down. That power is called judicial review. The idea of judicial review began with one famous case, Marbury versus Madison, Madison in 1803. It started as a small argument about a government job, but it became a turning point. Chief Justice John Marshall wrote the decision. He said, "It is the duty of the judicial department to say what the law is." With those words, the Supreme Court gave itself the right to judge the meaning of every law, even acts of Congress and the President. From that moment, the balance of power became clear. The court would not make laws or enforce them. It would protect the Constitution from violation by anyone. Over the years, the court has faced some of the hardest questions in American life. Questions about race, equality, liberty, and justice. In 1857, the case Dred Scott versus Sandford shocked the nation. The court ruled that enslaved people were not citizens and had no right to sue in federal court. The decision divided the country and pushed it closer to civil war. Decades later, another case tried to heal that wound. In 1954, the court decided Brown versus Board of Education. It declared that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. The words of the decision still echo. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. That ruling opened the door to the civil rights movement. It showed that the Supreme Court could be a force for progress, for justice and equality. The court also shaped freedom of speech and religion. In 1962, it ruled that schools could not force students to pray. In 1969, it protected students who wore protest symbols, saying, "You do not lose your rights when you enter the schoolhouse gate." It has made decisions about privacy, marriage, voting, and even the limits of government surveillance. Each case adds another layer to the living meaning of the Constitution. But the Supreme Court is not above debate. Its decisions can divide the nation. Some rulings bring celebration, others bring anger. The justices are human. They have different views, values, and philosophies. That is why each new appointment matters so much. When a justice retires or dies, the president chooses a new one, and the Senate must approve. Once confirmed, a justice serves for life. Their judgments may shape the country for generations. Through every era, the court's power has grown. It has stood firm during wars, economic crises, and social revolutions. Sometimes it limits government power, sometimes it expands it, but always it stands as the final interpreter of the law. When people argue about rights, they often end up here, in the Supreme Court, because in the end, it decides how the Constitution speaks to today's world. Every American president, every Congress, every citizen must follow the court's decisions. That is why it is called the law of the land. Its rulings are the final word, not just on paper, but in real life. A single decision can change millions of lives. It can open doors or close them. It can move the country forward or hold it still. That power is both heavy and sacred. It is the responsibility of interpreting freedom itself. More than 200 years after its birth, the Supreme Court remains the guardian of the Constitution. It reminds the nation that laws are not only rules, they are promises. Promises to protect liberty, justice, and equality for all. And yet, one question never disappears. Can this old document and this court of 9 people still guide a modern nation in a changing world? Chapter 9. Why it still matters today. More than 2 centuries have passed since the Constitution was written. The ink has faded, but its words still live. From small towns to big cities, from classrooms to courts, its spirit guides the nation every day. The United States has changed in every way: its people, its economy, its technology, its power. Yet the same old document, written with quill pens on parchment paper, continues to protect the country. Why? Because the Constitution is not just law. It is a promise. A promise that power must serve the people, not rule them. A promise that freedom belongs to all, not just a few. Every president, every senator, every judge, every soldier takes an oath to defend it. Those words, to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, are a reminder that no one is above it, not even the highest leader in the land. When the country faces crisis, the Constitution becomes its compass. During wars, it limits the power of armies. During protests, it protects the right to speak. During elections, it ensures peaceful transfer of power, the true heart of democracy. In this way, it is more than paper. It is the invisible line that holds the nation together. But the Constitution is also tested again and again. Each generation faces new problems the founders could never have imagined. The rise of the internet, global trade, artificial intelligence, and climate change, none of these existed in 1787. Still, Americans turn to the same document for answers. Judges interpret its meaning for a modern world. Lawmakers argue over its limits. Citizens demand that it live up to its ideals. That is what keeps it alive. Not silence, but discussion. Not blind obedience, but understanding. For many people, the Constitution is also a symbol of hope. Immigrants who arrive in America read it and believe in its promise of equality. Students study it and learn what rights truly mean. Activists use its words to fight for justice. The same document that once ignored women and enslaved people has become a weapon for their freedom. That is its greatest strength. It can grow beyond its own beginnings. Around the world, other nations have studied and copied it. More than 100 countries have written constitutions inspired by the American one. They admire its clarity, its balance, and its idea that government comes from the consent of the governed. But few have kept theirs as long, because survival is not about perfection. It is about adaptation. The U.S. Constitution has survived because it bends without breaking. It has room to change, but also roots that hold firm. It protects both liberty and order. It allows disagreement without destruction. Still, Americans often argue about its meaning. What does freedom of speech include? What does the right to bear arms mean in a modern society? Should the government have access to private data for safety? These debates never end. They are not signs of weakness. They are signs of life. They show that people still care, still question, still believe their voices matter. The Constitution was written by humans, for humans. It was never meant to be silent or sacred. It was meant to be read, discussed, and improved. In schools across the country, children still recite the preamble. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. Those words are simple, yet powerful. They remind everyone that democracy is not finished. It is a journey, one that each generation must continue. When Americans vote, protest, speak freely, or go to court, they are using the rights written over 230 years ago. When leaders are judged or laws are questioned, the Constitution is there, a quiet but firm guardian. It does not belong to politicians or judges. It belongs to the people. And as long as people read it, protect it, and believe in it, the Constitution will remain more than history. It will remain the heartbeat of American democracy.